first guest represents Georgia's 9th Congressional District, Representative Andrew Clyde. Thanks for joining us in the program.
Well, thank you, Andrew. It's great to be with you.
All right, let me start with what the speaker said about taking back unspent COVID funds. In 1974, the Congress passed a law called the Budget Control and Impoundment Act that allowed exactly for that, for a Congress to rescind the spending of a previous Congress. If the COVID emergency is over, why wouldn't we take that money back?
Well, it only makes sense to take that money back. I mean, we want to be fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars, and this is the way we do it. Republicans have the plan that's going to work for the nation. The Democrats have no plan. The Senate doesn't have one. The president doesn't have one. But we Republicans passed a plan last week that is going to responsibly increase our debt ceiling and put us on track to fiscal responsibility, solid spending cuts, and put us back to FY22 levels and capping future growth by just 1%. I mean, this is what we need to do to get us back to eventually a balanced budget.
Why are we hearing from the White House that veterans' benefits are being cut? I've interviewed Representative Scott Perry and others. I have yourself right here with us live. Not a single cut to veterans' benefits are in this package. Why is the Biden administration saying that?
Well, when they don't have the facts, then they go to sinister lies. It's a scare tactic. It's an attempt to intimidate, and it's going to fail because we have the truth. We're broadcasting the truth. You're helping us tell the truth, and that is that there are no cuts to veterans' benefits or to the VA in this debt ceiling increase. It just isn't there. But when the Democrats don't have anything, they lie. It's just typical standard operating procedure for Democrats, and they hope it sticks to the wall.
Okay, I'm sure if I were to ask a Democrat, I wouldn't get a straight answer. At $13 trillion, we were calling it a debt crisis. At $33 trillion, we're 20 trillion past. That's a huge number past when we were calling it a crisis. So when do politics no longer matter, right, left, Republican, Democrat, that it is just unsustainable? Not saying it's unsustainable, but in the reality, it can't go any higher. I mean, is it 35 trillion? Is it 40 trillion? We were playing clips of Representative Jody Arrington saying that under the current trajectory that we're on, we're going to be at $50 trillion in a decade.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're exactly right. And I heard a Democrat on the House floor saying that exact thing. And then after that, he said, and who cares? We're not going to pay it back anyway. And that's the mindset of the Democrat Party, that they're going to laden our children and grandchildren with this massive amount of debt, and they don't care about it because they're not going to be here. And that's so absolutely irresponsible.
It's funny you say that because I've heard more than one Democrat spokesperson say we're not a deadbeat nation. That's their new focus group, focus tested talking point. But if they're saying, well, who cares? We're not going to pay it back anyway. Wouldn't that make us a deadbeat nation?
Absolutely, it would make us a deadbeat nation. I mean, it's so inexcusable. It's so financially irresponsible. But the Republicans have a great plan to make this happen. We passed it last week. The president needs to embrace it. I'm glad that he has finally decided to negotiate with Speaker McCarthy. I think he needs to embrace this plan, as does the Senate, sign it and move it forward so we can get our country going again as it should. And Secretary Yellen then can stop saying that the sky is falling and we're not going to be able to pay our debts. We will always be able to pay our debts under Republican leadership.
Going forward, do you think, and I'm as a conservative, I'm going to tell you this, I think so. I think we need the penny plan. I think we need to have serious consideration, whether it's the Republican study group or whomever. We need to look at the flat tax and the fair tax. The idea that we're just going to point the finger and say, well, the rich are going to pay more, when we know the donor class is always promised they're not going to be paying more, right? They'll get the write-offs, they'll get the deductions, they'll get the loopholes, they'll offshore their money, whatever it is. And the talk of a wealth tax is totally insane because in 1920, the Supreme Court said you can't do that. So we have to look at ways to cut the spending. Nobody wants to hurt veterans. Nobody wants to hurt seniors, okay? Nobody wants to cut Medicare. But the idea that you're just going to keep ballooning this debt with no way of reducing it, that means it's just going to keep growing.
And when it keeps growing, eventually there will be failure. And that is what we have to stop. We have to prevent. That's why the Limit, Save, Grow Act is a great piece of legislation that bends down the spending curve, and then when it's time to look at it again, we'll bend it farther down, and we'll get to the point eventually of a balanced budget, because that's the whole point, to be financially responsible. We Republicans will do it. We passed the bill to do it. The president needs to sign the bill, and we need to move forward from there.
Didn't Barack Obama call this kind of spending unpatriotic? He did. He referred to the constant raising of the debt ceiling, and this level of spending is unpatriotic. You know what? I'll say a broken clock is right twice a day. I agree with Obama.
Well, that's an unusual thing to say, that's for sure. But You're right. You're absolutely right in this regard. What we have done in cutting spending. You played the clip of Speaker McCarthy. What wasn't mentioned on that clip was the $71 billion that will be saved when we eliminate the increase of the IRS. And then you have the $465 billion that will be saved when we eliminate the student loan program. And the work requirements that he mentioned will save, $120 billion over the next 10 years, and it will put those people back into the workforce, into being productive citizens. They'll be the ones contributing to Social Security and to Medicare. These are all good things. But the Democrats, they want a blind debt ceiling increase. I'm not going to call it a clean one. It's a blind one, because it takes our country down a path that we don't know where. And so it's inexcusable. It's just financially irresponsible for the Democrats to do that.
And work requirements, so Clinton era. I got to leave it there, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to be with you.
All right, coming up, Carl's